Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Bitz About Botz, where I have the esteemed pleasure of interviewing automation practitioners and thought leaders in the age of AI. I am especially excited to introduce my guest today, Chelle Meadows, who also happens to be a WonderBotz client. In today's discussion, we're going to review not only her book launch, not only some of the tremendous impact that she's made on her organization, but where and how she's evolved as an AI practitioner, given the novelty of this technology. So Chelle, thank you so much for being here today. Please introduce yourself and let everybody know a little bit about how you came to be this AI evangelist and thought leader in your space.
Sure, I'm happy to. So, like you said, I'm Chelle Meadows. I have 2 master's degrees in business administration, and I am a doctoral candidate at Liberty University pursuing a PhD in business management with a dissertation focus on using artificial intelligence for strategic decision-making purposes. So I think it was just kind of the culmination of being in the right space at the right time with the right educational background, and of course, a curiosity about the technology that's coming out. So I'm really excited about artificial intelligence and intelligent automation and how, when combined with traditional total quality management techniques like Lean Six Sigma and Kaizen and 7S, that this new technology can take us to that next level of efficiency.
That's fantastic. And Chelle, when we were getting to know each other in preparation for this as well, you mentioned that not only was your education aligned, but there was some examples in some of your early jobs that you had. I think even before AI was a buzzword or even a known phrase, where you optimized and had efficiency measures that went into consideration and how you optimized things. So I think it was kind of always in the fabric of how you worked. So tell us a little bit about that story, because I loved that anecdote about you.
Sure. So I've always been a bit of a project assassin, I guess, to use my boss's term for what I do, in that I look at projects from a different perspective and out of the box type of thinking. And I had just finished reading a book about Henry Ford and the invention of the conveyor system and why that was so informational and transformational for the auto industry. I happened to be helping out at my employer, who at the time was a warehouse and fulfillment distributor. And we unfortunately had 163 pallets of returned product to process, with 6 to 7 pallets coming in every day. And we were underwater. The department was underwater. So I came in and would help. And the process at that time was that we would take a box off the pallet, open it up, make notes, repackage, break down the box, go put the item away. And we all worked very independently in individual silos, just working off the same pallets. And we would get maybe 2 pallets a day done with a 5-person team. I happened to come in on a Saturday for some volunteer overtime, young and had the spare time and wanted the money, right? And so I came in, and using what I had just read in the book about Henry Ford, I did the system a little differently. I would open up all the boxes on the pallets and sort out and repackage the products, but make much more detailed notes on the return order form so that I could understand what I had there. And then I created individual boxes that I could sort the products in. And about an hour before the end of the shift, I returned all the cardboard to recycling. And then I took all of my boxes and I was able to put a whole box full of product away. And so in that one day, I managed to process 5 pallets by myself. And so that really opened up my eyes to how a change in a process can have a significant impact. And it opened the eyes of management at the company as well. And we changed how we did that process. Within 6 months, we were actually caught up and waiting for the delivery truck to bring us our pallets of returned products. And having that experience happen so early in my career made my awareness of improving efficiency something that I looked at in every company I've ever worked at. And now it's just exciting because now I get to continue to do that, but with AI.
Oh, that's so fantastic. And I loved that story because it's such a simple anecdote about how process reimagining can change the game. And I think that's, for folks that maybe think that automation or AI or some of these terms are a little out of reach and perhaps difficult to understand from a practical perspective or from an operational perspective, having an example like that to really show efficiencies even in humans, right, of thinking through how step one goes to step two, and maybe it should actually go from step one to step five and then back to step two. It begins to set the framework for what we now call wireframes, in intelligent automation, and really thinking through the best, most critical path to efficiency to optimize not only the production time, not only, the speed of you guys getting, through those pallets, but there's a monetary gain on the backside of that. And I think that foundation set you up for kind of where you're at today. So I just love that story. And I thought it was just so relevant when you told me about that. So Chelle, the other thing that I think, a lot of folks, subscribe and listen to our conversations about intelligent automation and AI and join our monthly webinars because they're still trying to grapple with the concept of what is AI. There's Chat GPT, there's elements of it. We all talk to our, Alexa or Google Home, to ask it to do something. I'm hoping mine doesn't turn on from that prompt. But we have, we've dabbled in it, from a commercial perspective, from a non-business perspective in ways that are understandable. In business, it's really taken off in the last 5 years where companies are reevaluating the way that they budget for technology and really thinking of it, all the way through from end to end. So when you began, the initiative of kind of evaluating how you guys were going to take things to the next level, could you share a little bit about how that thought process emerged and some of the first actions that you took to begin evaluating what it was that you guys were going to procure and ultimately implement at your organization?
Sure. I mean, the journey wasn't easy, right? And I think I've known WonderBotz now for over a year, and we're just really starting this collaborative relationship. I came at it like I always do, from a workflow perspective. I don't think that using any kind of tool can be done from a top-down approach. I think you have to get into the minds and behaviors of the frontline workers because they know where those pain points are. And so I spent the first 2 or 3 months getting a real understanding of what our workflow processes were from the workforce perspective. What took the most time? And we measured, the important thing is you have to have a way of measuring your investment and whether you're making those right choices. And so we tried to find ways to track as easily as possible how long it took us to get from point A to point B to point C throughout the workflow process. And I'm sorry, I'm being a little bit vague because some of this is proprietary, right? And so we identified the workflow processes, we got some KPIs on it, and then I sat down with Photoshop and I built my own wireframing without really understanding its requirement for intelligent automation. And I had a vision of what I wanted to do that really shook up the workflow process, taking something that was very lateral and integrating some parallel systems within it, which then saves time. And I sent my vision to people that said they worked in artificial intelligence space, and nobody gave me the time of day. I don't know if it's because we were a small company. I don't know if it's because they didn't understand what I was trying to envision. And then I got introduced to WonderBotz, and WonderBotz looked at it along with their partners and said, "This is great. We know what you want, but here's a better way." They also taught me some hard lessons, like it's great that you want to do this, but your systems aren't ready for it, right? Because the very first thing for any intelligent automation or artificial intelligence is your data and your infrastructure. It is so foundational that for us, it kind of became a stop sign. We had to stop, reevaluate, and think about, okay, what do we need to do first to get from point A to point B to even begin working with WonderBotz? And that was a 9-month-long process. It's not a plug and play, easy fix solution like a lot of I'll say so-called experts, people that spent 30 hours playing with ChatGPT, it's not as quick and easy as they make it sound if you're doing it at an enterprise level. It takes testing, it takes validation. I average close to 300 or more chat conversations with AI tools in a month. I mean, the volume of testing I've done with everything from computer vision to parsing out data to validating document uploading, I've spent months of time on it just to understand what the capabilities are. I'm also a big believer that if somebody else can do it, we can do it too, right? So if I'm using an app for something as silly as taking pictures of my receipts so I can earn points to get a free Amazon gift card, why can't we use that same technology in a different environment, like taking a picture of an invoice or a purchase order or some other document that may not come in through, 30 years ago, what was it, EDI?
Yes.
Right? Technology has gotten so much better and faster at capturing that data. Why can't we use that in new and interesting ways? And I think that's why you guys like to partner with us, is because you never know where my ideas are going to come from and what I challenge you to build next.
Well, I know, and I certainly have heard from all of the teams, involved with your implementation. I think a couple of things that you said are really important to note is, a lot of times vendors, software vendors, of all varieties, not just RPA, not just intelligent automation, not just, AI, not just document readers, tend to sell the software as an ease of implementation. It's very, very easy. And in some elements it is, if you're already a Microsoft user, the Power Automate, and Power Platform tools are there and available for you. And you can certainly start those and get going and start automating things and start seeing benefits. The challenge, however, lies in exactly what you laid out, which is enterprise grade scale. Because if the foundations aren't laid, then you're going to run into costly truncations in your process to develop and build down the road. And it's better to assess and kind of mitigate those risks up front and ensure that everybody's on board. Every line of business understands the impact and implication that it's going to be to turn into an AI ready organization. And I think the other thing too is that you're an early adopter. So organizations of your size, I think, were often priced out of these technologies because of the way that the commercial models were laid out. And WonderBotz identified that a long time ago, which is why we've offered things as a managed service. And we've offered things from a way that gives you the consumption ready opportunities rather than having to buy, at wholesale, these software tools that maybe the organization isn't ready to implement. And imagine if you would have procured, your automation software 9 months ago, only to have it sitting there as shelfware for 9 months as you prepared to embrace being a modern technology. So I think you guys have done things prudently. And the innovation is certainly what we love being a part of partnerships for, because your ideas then spell out new ways that we can share with other clients how to move things forward. And conversations like this help expose that. So I think you get a gold star for a client, innovativeness. And we look forward to seeing where it continues. So Chelle, one of the other things that I think is so important, and in this space, and I think this is probably the case across the board with any kind of innovation, is it's important to talk about it, and it's important to share about it. And you've done a tremendous job of putting out, LinkedIn articles. I was one of the first ones, in kind of my niche too, about 10 years ago, talking about how the CFO needs to start understanding RPA, and now it's, the AI powered CFO, and really translating these technology terms to a business user so that they can understand it and not necessarily have to get hung up on features and functions, but really about outcomes. What are the business outcomes and the business problems that we're trying to solve for? And in that quest of you aggregating all of this content, all of this information, and just being such a remarkable thought leader on LinkedIn, you have now published a book. So tell us a little bit about the launch of your book, what you were hoping to achieve with the aggregation of all this content, and kind of how that's going, because that's such an exciting new add to your resume.
Sure. It kind of started out because I got tired of the talking heads, for lack of a better term, on different news medias talking about something that they didn't even know what they were talking about, right? I mean, I don't know how else to explain it. It frustrates me when I hear self-proclaimed experts talking about something, and I just laugh because it's just not right. And so I wanted to change the conversation, because when AI first came out 18 months ago, and by AI, I'm referring to generative AI, right? Not the integrative AI that we've had for 50 years. But the generative AI came out, everybody was either super excited about it or were negative naysayers and put the blinders, I guess, for lack of a better word, on business leaders. They couldn't see its availability and its potential and how it could completely revolutionize the way we do business, because all they were getting was negative input. So I wanted to change the conversation and start being a positive force about what artificial intelligence could do. And so I started publishing articles on LinkedIn every Tuesday and Friday, talking about whatever came to mind or whatever I was doing as part of my research for my dissertation, or part of my conversations and trying to find the right partner like WonderBotz, or even what I've learned along the way as a project manager trying to look at different things, right? So it was a very random collection of articles, and they were just kind of funny in some cases. Like, I talk about how large language models like ChatGPT and Copilot, they're really as smart as a seventh grader, right? If I tell my seventh grader to clean the kitchen, I guarantee she's going to hallucinate that it's clean, right? I have to give her very specific prompts, and large language models are no different, right? Or I wrote an article about, hey, you're worried about AI replacing you at work, right? That's a big fear. It was even discussed recently on a movie that came out in 2024 on artificial intelligence, about how, oh, this is going to replace me as a worker. And I talk about it as how, AI's replaced me as a mom, right? My kids all go to their different large language models and they'll ask it questions. Hey, help me do this, instead of coming to me because I'm busy either doing my work or schoolwork or any other projects. They've learned that they can ask it for simple step-by-step directions. And so I've been replaced as a mom to a certain degree. And so these articles were just accumulating over the year. And at the end of 2024, I thought, you know what? I'm going to put them all together in a book. And I actually did use ChatGPT to help me. I uploaded the titles for all of my articles, and I said, put this in a book that makes sense for business leaders, because it really was a mishmash of things that were happening. And so it gave me that rough framework, and then it was just a lot of editing, like 12 versions of editing and proofing and getting new copies. And it finally came out this week. It's available on Amazon, and it's called From Data to Decisions. It's AI Insights for Business Leaders. And it's written in a very down-to-earth conversational style, just like this. It explains certain terms, it identifies some frameworks, it has some advice on what small business leaders can do for their smaller enterprises. It recognizes that sometimes it's more prudent to wait than to just jump in with both feet without really knowing what you're getting into. And it just covers a wide variety of topics, but they're put together in blocks that make sense. And it's a small book. It's less than 200 pages, but it at least gets business leaders thinking about things like setting up an internal AI council, writing AI policies. I have a whole chapter that talks about data and ethics, because while the ethics wasn't a problem for us, the data definitely was. And so trying to understand those so that before you find a strategic partner, you're positioning your organization in a way that you can move forward without hopefully spinning your wheels as much as I probably did.
Well, and I think the way that, that you framed it is from experience, from, trial and error, and just really talking like a human, because I think, like you said, one of the things that everybody's most afraid of is that the human's going to be replaced by the AI. And by adding a human voice to these concepts, I think it makes it so much more tangible for everybody. So I'm looking forward to it. You need to tell Amazon that they need a Prime version of it because it is a 3 to 5 shipping timeline.
Oh, I don't know how to do that. I'll have to look into it.
Well, maybe we should ask ChatGPT about that after
I
this
think it's because it's
conversation.
print on demand. That might be why. But
Okay.
yeah, I can
Well,
look into that.
Either way, I look forward to receiving my copy, Chelle. So one of the things that I always like to ask leaders, especially since you've been, in the business of seeing, tasting, touching, hands-on keyboard, from every level of strategy through to execution on these things. I want to know what you think is coming next. 18 months ago, we had generative AI change the game and change the way that we talked about this, entire category. Gartner continues to try and come up with the way to classify all of the things that we're doing. HFS, all of them, all the analysts are clamoring to figure out how we categorize what's happening. And really, it's all about getting efficient, and it's really about modernizing the workforce. So what do you foresee in the next 12 months? We're at the beginning of 2025. What do you foresee in the coming months and how adoption and understanding is going to go over the next several months?
I think that to answer that question, you kind of have to look at history and what happens when a disruptor of technology comes into play. And so I'm going to pick on the big three automakers because I think it's a part of history that's the easiest to understand, right? So we had Ford, GMC, and Chrysler, and they were building us these amazing cars that were big oil guzzling machines because bigger was better, right? We're talking 1960s. And then what happened in the 1970s? Well, we had an oil embargo and gas prices went through the roof. And Toyota came in with a fuel efficient, cost efficient, reliable vehicle because they changed their workflow process. They studied the big three automakers and saw how they were doing business, and they totally blew up the way it was being done and came out with a better, faster, safer, cost effective machine. And the reason I think the next 12 months we're going to have history repeat itself is because we've already got OpenAI and Google, and I don't remember what X calls theirs, but we've got these big AI giants that are out there. And who's coming in from the side is DeepSeek. Not so sure if I want to play around with DeepSeek yet, even though it is open source. I do freely admit I have concerns from a security and ethical level, but they're disrupting our understanding of what AI can do and how it can be built and how it can be leveraged. And I think in the next 12 months, we're going to see that change the technology industry the same way Toyota changed the automobile industry. That's about as far future looking as I'm willing to go, because I'm always surprised. I mean, ChatGPT can now do tasks automatically. Like I used to tell it to give me my calendar. Now I can tell it to give me my calendar and remind me, right? Every day, new technology comes into play. And I don't think you can predict what human creativity can come up with. That's why I'm not afraid of AI replacing my job, because you have, as a human, such an amazing capacity to use our own brains and to pull things in that don't fit the pattern, right? I don't fit the pattern when it comes to doing work ever. I'm always looking outside the box and at other industries to see what we can do to do our job better. And that's why I think predicting anything with artificial intelligence this early in the game is a dangerous thing to play.
Yes, no, and I couldn't agree more. I think that's a really prudent, set of principles to live by, is that we need to kind of see what it is, absorb. I will say that any organizations that aren't in at least pilot phase or thinking through how their budgeting is going to go for this probably won't exist in 5 years from now, because I think the time is now. But I also think it's important to note that leading into these things, all we're going to see is exciting disruptions that are going to give us cause to think more and think more creatively. Every time a new idea comes on board, we get more and more excited about where it can lead and what it can do. So Chelle, any last thoughts for our audience as we close out today? What an exciting chapter. And I can't wait to interview you in 6 more months from now and see where we're at.
I would just say that make sure you find the experts to help you through this process, right? No one individual has all the answers. I get very nervous when people refer to me as an AI expert. Sometimes it happens within our company, or just, people are excited because I do write about it and talk about it. I don't think, and I would say anybody should be aware of somebody that says, hey, I'm an expert in AI. AI is too big of an umbrella and has too many components to it for any one person or company to be an expert in 100% of it, right? That's why WonderBotz has done so well in choosing strategic partners, right? You say, okay, we're really an expert at this, and we're leveraging the partnership of this company because they expert in this, and so on and so forth, so that as a client, I get the full plethora of options available at the best price, and from a team that we can trust to always guide us the right way, and to let us know, hey, you wanted this option, but did you know this might be a better way of doing it, right? I accept that I may have had a vision, but you guys did a great job of coming in and saying, that's a good vision, but guess what? We can do it even better, or faster, or more efficiently, or more cost effectively than what you've even envisioned. And that's really important. There's a lot of people out there nowadays claiming to be experts and that they can build this and do that. I think you need to make sure that you're vetting exactly what that expertise is, and that it's in something other than salesmanship and showmanship.
That's such great advice. And I think, one of the things that we pride ourselves on is understanding how to bring the entire ecosystem together. And all of our leadership teams spend a tremendous amount of time vetting out partners, vetting out, alliances, and understanding where we want to use different types of technology to either infuse into our solutions or be an adjacent technology to some of the outcomes that we're aiming to solve for our clients like you. So Chelle, thank you so much. And to everyone tuning in, please stay tuned for all the webinar updates as well, where thought leaders come together to discuss the many elements of intelligent automation and artificial intelligence. So Chelle, thank you so much. And we look forward to the launch of your book, seeing the success there, and checking in with you in a few months to see how that's going. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.